We have a covenant with God. You have to operate in covenant authority. It's relational. Abraham had a relationship which gave him opportunity because he was connected to God to release God through his hands. Did you all hear that? Because he had a covenant with God and a relationship with God, he could release God through his hands. A conduit. Come on now, this is pretty good stuff. Okay, I will. So out of covenant authority and relationship, believing and acting releases what you have based on that relationship and the covenant authority. So when you're doing it, you're releasing him, you're not releasing you. Amen. You're right. That's how it's done. Exodus chapter 9, Moses gets in on the act, and he's got these plagues, and God says, take some ashes from the furnace, throw them up in the air. I've gotten ashes out of my wood stove. This is in chapter 9, verse 6, if you're looking for it. And just throw them up in the air. Ashes in the air. What does that do?
It makes a mess.
When you're releasing God through the ashes by your actions, because the ashes is in your hand and you're doing, and then all of a sudden the ashes create, for the Egyptians in that case, boils as one of the plagues. Ashes. An inanimate, useless, unless you're trying to put it in your garden or something, which they would. It's just ashes. It's whatever it was is no longer useful. They're inanimate, but by faith, using their hand. What do you have in your hand? Everybody say that with me. What do I have in my hand? That's what God can use. So, ashes become boils, it becomes a plague. And then Moses is carrying this stick around, his staff. I didn't bring my staff with me today. So, he's got a stick. He's been carrying it around since he met God at the bush. And back at the bush, God said, "What's in your hand?" I said, "Well, throw it on the ground." And he did. It became a serpent. He was afraid. He had to go grab the serpent. Now, if you're afraid and God tells you to grab the serpent, you need to grab the serpent. Some of you would have had more trouble than he did. He grabbed the serpent, it became a staff again. But when he got to Egypt, he still had his staff. And so there came a day when they got down by the Red Sea, and the people are saying, "We're all going to die. There weren't any graves in Egypt." And Moses is crying out to the Lord, and the Lord says, "Why are you crying out to me? Take your staff." What's in your hand? Take your staff. Act like you have authority. Act like me. Christ in you is the hope of glory, so act like me. Stuck his stick out. What does a stick do to water? Nothing. It does nothing to water, but covenant authority in a stick in your hand will do whatever you need. The waters needed to part. Raise your stick. Inanimate object connected to covenantal authority, and things change. Then they get to the waters of Marah, and they have this bitter water, and they can't drink it, and they want to go back to Egypt again. These people, and neither do we. We have to overcome over and over again, wanting to be like the world after we've left the world. Oh, me, Pastor John. That was, yeah. And so God shows him a tree. He says, throw the tree in the water. You know what a tree does to water? It pollutes it. Now you got debris in the water. This is why they're supposed to be drinking it. Throw a tree in it. Now Moses didn't say this, but that if you're not thinking covenant, you're thinking, what's a tree going to do? He throws the tree in the water, and the waters become, everybody can drink. All 3 million of them and all their cattle. That's pretty big, isn't it? Okay, a tree. A tree. God uses the inanimate things in the hands of covenant people to change things. Yeah, it's getting pretty good around here. In 2 Kings chapter 2, there was a spring of water that was bad. I don't know how it went bad, but it was for the whole region. It was a spring of water. It went bad. And they go to Elisha and say, Elisha, the water's bad. Okay, give me a jar of salt. How many of you have ever put salt in water and made it good? It's not about the salt. Everybody say that with me. It's not about the salt. It's about an inanimate object in the hand of a covenant man, acting as though God was there, throwing it in the water, and the spring was healed, and the whole land got water. Well, he was a special person. So are you. If you have a mirror, you can stick it up in front of yourself and say, you're special. So then in chapter 4, verse 3, there's a woman who's lost everything. Her husband's dead. The creditors are about to take her kids. She goes to Elisha and says, I'm going to lose everything. He said, well, what do you have? Everybody say, what do you have? What do you have? What do you have in your house? This little bottle of oil. Okay, that's all you need. Now, go borrow as many pots and vessels as you can get from your neighbors. Not a few. Okay, so she and her boys go and borrow from all the neighbors. Okay, now she's just being obedient. She's not moving by faith yet. She's just being obedient because she went to the man of God. She wants to do whatever he says. And so she gets all the pots she can find. He's still hanging around. He says, okay, we got all the pots. He said, okay, take your little bottle, go in the house, and shut the door. It's just you and the boys. It's going to be you and the boys' testimony. And then fill those jars. So she takes her little bottle of oil. She's got nothing to cook with it. She's out of food. There's your little bottle of oil. She goes in, takes the top off, or unplugs it, whatever it was like. And so then she begins to pour. Well, that's about 4 ounces, not going to do much. She begins to pour and pour and pour. Give me another pot and pour. And there was an assembly line of oil production. She and her boys. And the last one was getting full, and she said, bring me another pot. And they said, we're out, Mom, we're out. And the oil stops. Oil. It's not about the oil. It's about the covenant relationship that releases blessing through an act of faith. And so she goes and tells Elijah, we got these pots. He said, okay, go sell them. Open the oil market. Pay your bills and live off of it. So I don't know how many pots she had, but it was enough for them to live off of. You're not going to get enough just to survive. You're going to enough to live off of. Covenant authority and an action with an inanimate object bringing transformation. And then chapter 6, 2 Kings, verse 5, there's some guys cutting down some trees and they're hewing out some beams and the axe head comes off of one of the guy's axes and it goes in the water. And the